Tomorrow morning, July 7th, the EPA holds a public hearing on erasing the drinking water limits for 4 forever chemicals. To understand what is at stake in that room, you need to hear how this chemical got into your blood in the first place. In December 2005, the United States government hit the chemical giant DuPont with the largest fine of its kind in American history, for what the company had kept hidden for 4 decades about a chemical its own lab first flagged back in 1961. A chemical that is now in the blood of 99 out of 100 Americans, including you. Whole towns drank it straight from the kitchen tap for years. Mothers, children, newborns, never warned, and it has since been linked to cancer in some of them. That record fine was $16.5 million. Researchers who studied the case estimate the chemical was earning DuPont about $1 billion a year. By that math, the biggest penalty in history cost them less than a week of sales. But the fine is not the story. The story is what DuPont did next. 10 years later, the company gathered up those poison liabilities, packed them into a brand new corporation most people have never heard of, and cut it loose. The bill for contaminating nearly every American bloodstream wasn't paid. It was made to disappear. And just weeks ago, in May 2026, the drinking water limits quietly started disappearing too. This is the anatomy of a corporate vanishing act, and it starts with what they knew. The chemical has a forgettable name, PFOA. The people who made it just called it C8. You've met what it built though. C8 is how they made Teflon, the reason a fried egg slides clean off a non-stick pan. It's in your cookware, your raincoat, your carpet, your food wrapper. And C8 belongs to a family scientists now call forever chemicals, because they essentially do not break down. Not in the soil, not in the water, not in you. Once it's loose, it is loose for good. So how does a chemical from a frying pan end up in the blood of an entire country, while the people whose job it was to stop it did nothing for 40 years? To answer that, you have to start with a dead cow. In the late 1990s, a cattle farmer named Wilbur Tennant in Parkersburg, West Virginia, was watching his animals die. Not a few, more than 100. They had blackened teeth, lesions, they staggered in circles before they dropped. His farm sat just downstream from land owned by the biggest employer in the valley, the chemical giant DuPont. Tennant was sure the water was killing his herd. Nobody would touch the case until a lawyer named Rob Bilott took it, and here's the part that matters. Bilott was not a crusader. He was a corporate defense attorney. He had spent his career on the other side, defending chemical companies exactly like DuPont. He knew how they thought, and that is the only reason what happened next was even possible. At first, DuPont played it calm. They agreed to a study of Tennant's farm, vets chosen by the company and the EPA. The verdict came back. The cattle were dying because Tennant was a bad farmer. Poor nutrition, bad fly control. His fault. It should have ended there. Most of these stories do. But Bilott did something a defense lawyer knows to do. He stopped asking about cows, and he asked for the documents, all of them, and DuPont, confident, handed over a mountain of paper, more than 100,000 pages. They expected him to drown in it. Instead, he read it. Buried in those files was the truth DuPont had been sitting on for a generation. Back in 1961, 60-some years ago, the company's own chief toxicologist tested these Teflon chemicals on rats. Their livers swelled. The recommendation, in DuPont's own words, was to handle the material with extreme care and keep it off the skin. That was the warning shot. And by 1970, internal company documents flatly described C8 as highly toxic. They had reason to fear this chemical roughly 40 years before the public ever heard the word PFOA. The whole time, it was flowing out of the Parkersburg plant, into the air, into a landfill, into the river, into the tap water of tens of thousands of people who were drinking it without a clue. Now here is where everyone tells this story wrong. You'd assume the crime was the dumping. It wasn't, because legally, PFOA was nothing. It was unregulated, no limit, no ban, no rule against putting it in your water. So, when the government finally went after DuPont, the charge was not poisoning. Of the 8 counts the EPA brought, 7 were for one thing, failing to tell them. Failing to report what the company already knew. Sit with that. The weapon was never just the chemical. The weapon was the secret, and keeping that secret was, for 40 years, not against the law. Which forces the real question: how can a company know a chemical is toxic, pump it into a community's water, and break no law by staying silent? The answer is the part nobody wants to say out loud. It's not a glitch, it's the design. The American system for chemical safety mostly runs on an honor code. Companies are trusted to test their own products and report their own dangers. A chemical is treated as safe until someone proves it isn't. And the proof that does exist, the studies, the blood data, the rat livers, sits locked inside the company that profits from selling it. We built a system that asks the fox to file an incident report on the henhouse. So DuPont never had to beat the system. The system worked exactly as it was written. And you are the one living inside the results. And that brings us to the part that should change how you see this forever. This is not a story about a town. It's a story about your blood. And the only reason we can prove that is something close to an accident. When the people of Parkersburg sued, the settlement did something unusual. It funded an independent panel of scientists, and it paid for the residents to be studied. Around 70,000 people rolled up their sleeves and gave their blood, the largest human study of this chemical ever attempted. 3 independent epidemiologists spent years on the data, and in 2012, they delivered a verdict no company ever wanted to exist. Here is what the panel concluded C8 was probably doing to the people who had been drinking it. Raising their cholesterol, damaging the thyroid, inflaming the gut, spiking blood pressure in pregnant women, and a probable link to 2 cancers, kidney and testicular. 6 conditions, 1 chemical. And the blood they found it in is the same blood that is in you. Now hear the honesty in that phrase. Probable link is not the same as proof. Scientists chose those words carefully, and so will I. But understand what it cost to learn even that much. A lawsuit, a settlement, and 70,000 people bleeding into test tubes. And remember, this chemical is not in 70,000 people. It's in almost all of us. Before this case goes any further, nearly everyone you know is carrying C8 right now, and almost none of them know it, so send this to one person, because the secret only works if nobody shares it. Now, back to the case. So, tally the bill. You already know about the record fine, $16.5 million, less than a week of sales. In 2017, the company settled thousands of personal injury claims, the cases you may know from the film Dark Waters, for around $670 million. And here is the detail that tells you everything. When DuPont had been required just 2 years earlier to certify a maximum realistic price for exactly those cases, the number it put on paper was $128 million. The real bill came in at more than 5 times their maximum. At a second contaminated site, they certified about $2 million. Actual costs blew past $200 million, 100 times off. Remember those numbers because someone else was about to inherit everyone. that someone was born in July 2015 when DuPont performed the cleanest trick in the corporate playbook. It took its performance chemicals division, the Teflon business, the C8 plants, and with them the poison liabilities, and spun it off into a brand new company called Chemours. On the way out the door, the newborn company even paid its parent a parting dividend of nearly $4 billion. Sit with that. The corporation that made the chemical, buried the warnings, and banked the profits had just handed the entire bill to a smaller company and gotten paid to do it. Chemours did the math and sued its own creator, telling a Delaware court that DuPont's liability estimates were, quote, systematically and spectacularly wrong. And here is the twist a thriller writer would reject. The case was never heard. The separation agreement DuPont itself had written contained an arbitration clause, and the courts threw the lawsuit out. In 2021, the companies settled quietly, agreeing to share up to $4 billion in legacy costs. In 2023, they paid just over $1 billion to America's public water systems, while the original maker, 3M, agreed to pay up to $12.5 billion of its own. Enormous, historic, and here is the gut punch. No one went to prison. The chemical was legal the entire time, and every dollar of those settlements pays to filter water, not to pull a single molecule of C8 back out of your bloodstream where it's already sitting. So let's be clear about what kind of story this really is. It is not the one where the villain gets caught and justice is done. Catching them changed almost nothing, because nothing they did to get the chemical into you was illegal. The fine was a rounding error. The liabilities were repackaged and handed off. The chemical is still in you, clearing out over years, if at all. The first federal limits on it in your drinking water arrived in 2024, some 60 years after that first rat study. They survived barely 2 years. This May 18th, 2026, the EPA proposed erasing the brand new limits for 4 of these forever chemicals entirely and giving water systems until 2031 to deal with the 2 that remain. The public hearing is set for July 7th, so as you watch this, the Disappearing Act is not history, it is in progress, and the system that allowed every step of it, the honor code, the self-reporting, the safe until proven guilty, is still today the exact same system. C8 is one chemical, one that happened to have a dead farmer's cattle, a defector lawyer, and 100,000 pages behind it. There are tens of thousands of other chemicals in the world around you that have had none of those things. No lawsuit, no panel, no blood study, no headline. They're treated as safe, not because anyone proved they are, just because no one has been forced yet to prove they aren't. The pen that decides what counts as safe has never been in your hand. Now at least you know whose hand it's in.